Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the Yo Video Games podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for nearly 500 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideoGamesPodcast. Dude of the week is just Kobe, and this week we have a guest, Stealth40K. You might be following him for his Nintendo predictions or collectible. I know you're a big collectibles guy, but I actually I've never been huge into collectibles, and so my first question is like a softball. Let's get into the topic. What is your favorite form of collectible? Like if you're walking through, a mall or a store, or you're traveling. This is even better. You're traveling abroad and you see a thing and you're like, I'm gonna make room for that. What is it?
Probably a pretty boring answer, but I focus primarily on collecting systems and software. As best as I can. I like having.
It's a very clean collectible though, because I have this. You can't see it. I have this bookshelf, this really nice bookshelf, and it's just full of games. It's a game bookshelf, and then I put these Blade character acrylics that I got in Japan in front of it and stuff. And it's just, I don't know, something about it, just a nice bookshelf of games.
No, but that's not a boring answer, because then I got a further follow-on question. What is your favorite system to hunt for games? Like retro, or even it could be recent. It could be PS3 if you really if you really want to say that. But
I've really enjoyed hunting for PS4 and Switch, honestly. Pretty much the systems with like the big RPG counts. Those are the systems I go for. I guess in terms of collecting, I don't really, I appreciate like figures from afar, but I'd say for a long time I was collecting, and this is something that most people don't care about anymore, is video game magazines.
My brother collects them.
Yeah, I have a pretty complete collection of Nintendo Power and a few other sets. I always enjoy like going back like 10, 20 years, seeing what
oh my god, the ads, the print ads in magazines. You go 20 years and further back, the print ads are just a wonderful time capsule. Not always wonderful, because like the late 90s, early 2000s frat boy era of video gaming is like, you look back and you just like
the golden age.
For some, but it's like it's so weird, because like with the really early 80s, you have these very Sears catalog, a lot of white backgrounds, little tiny screenshots. There's a little paragraph in like the bottom half or the bottom right, and there's like one sort of like art, like hand-drawn art thing that's covering the top half or more than the 2/3 of the top. They're so bizarre, and how it was very, I don't know, like catalog-y, and then it got wild, then it got like extreme and weird and splotchy in the 90s.
Yeah, and often they had nothing to do with the games themselves, because back then, Western marketing thought, gamers don't want this anime stuff. So they either turned it into something completely different or hid whatever like actual key art was there. And we got some really wacky ads.
I have a friend. I should try to get him on the podcast sometime, but because he has stories, because he was there. He said, I came in right at the end of like that weird 90s, and the weird that was exactly the attitude of the marketing team of the American branches of even these game companies, was kind of like, it just kind of hide the fact that it's a video game, and just kind of like sell the fact that I'm like, cool people do this, or this will make you a man, or whatever, just like the Mountain Dew Doritos Extreme kind of. I mean, I remember the print ad for, well, maybe going a little too far, but Sega Dreamcast, the Seaman print ad.
Yeah.
It was just this big dirty picture of just a bed, a hotel room bed, and a fish fin coming out the bottom over a pair of human legs. And it was like, I will not mate outside my species, like written like a chalkboard across the whole thing. And I'm like, great Sega. Really selling the idea.
But Dreamcast truly was the best.
And it's a pet simulator too. You would get such a wrong idea looking at some of these print ads.
Yeah, honestly, I bought it because of things like that, and it was not what I bought.
I think one of the more famous ones was for Earthbound, where like very front and center, it's like this game stinks.
This game stinks.
Yeah,
so
like,
scratch and sniff sticker.
It did, yeah. And actually, mine still smells badly.
Is it a nasty smell? I never actually.
Yeah,
I mean, I vaguely remember smelling it in going to the market when your parent was like, "Hey, we're going to the market," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm going straight to the magazine aisle, and I'm just going to sit there and read the Game Pros and the Nintendo Powers and the EGMs and whatever, and the Game Fan." And I do distinctly remember trying to smell the Earthbound ad one time, just being like, "Smells like kind of like just paper and like wet dog or something." I don't know. I don't know. It didn't come off really pungent, but like, yeah, lucky you got a still pungent.
Yeah, and as I recall, like the ad had like 2 small screenshots, like not really enough, but mostly I just collected the magazines. I liked reading like the editor's monthly statement, like just seeing where games were, or just seeing where they thought games were going and where they were going to be and who they thought was going to be big, and I enjoyed collecting that. But yeah, mostly right now I enjoy collecting the systems and the games.
Oh yeah. Well then I'll jump us right into a harder question, because it's going to be topical for what we're going to probably finish the episode on later on. How we grading Switch 1 now that we're at the end of Switch 1's life? We going to grade it like we're talking PS5 is midway through its life or 3/4 of the way through its life, and I'd give it a D because it doesn't seem like it's worth it. But a Switch 1, you two probably have played way more Switch games than I have. You two have definitely played way more Switch games than I have. But if I was going to grade it personally for myself, I think I would grade it lower than expected, probably in like a B, because I wanted
letter. Are we going letter grade?
Yeah, I was giving it a letter grade, but it could be out of 10 if you guys would rather have that.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm going lower is because I think I expected to use it more as a handheld, and it was much more of a docked console for me in the end. And that's not the system's fault. So I completely acknowledge that my letter grade doesn't necessarily mean anything to a listener. But I dock it for that. Is there anything that you dock it for, and what do you end up giving? What do you give the Switch 1?
I would probably give the Switch 1 an A-. Okay. I personally think it's my favorite Nintendo system ever, just because over the course of 8 years, I look at, I think of all the Nintendo series in my mind, and it's like, does Switch have the best library of them? And in many instances, I feel yes. And, it's funny. I would message out like, oh, this exact thing. And be like, oh man, there's no Final Fantasy VI, there's no Chrono Trigger on it. How can you say it's the best? And I'm like, oh, come on. I know there's a lot of nostalgia for like the SNES in particular.
Yeah.
But for me, just the breadth of, and obviously like the one thing I would knock it for is there's plenty of games on Switch that are not best on Switch. Obviously if you have a PS4, PS5, it's the best way to play it because Switch isn't technologically super great. But if you only have Switch, you should be pretty happy. Over the last 8 years. So I would only dock it because, next to PS4, there's plenty of games that are just better on the PS4.
Yeah, I think the cardinal sin of that the Switch committed was the Joy-Con drift. Which the thing is I actually never got Joy-Con drift. I've had a system since June 2017, and then I have an OLED. Neither one of them had Joy-Con drift. The Pro controller I've been using since 2017 does not have Joy-Con drift. I have been through 3 PS3 and 2 PS5 controllers, both with stick drift. Strangely enough, and my God of War Ragnarok PS5 thing is doing that weird thing where the sticks are like melting, or like the getting that weird sticky residue. But that's a whole nother talk. But the thing is it was a well-known, well-documented case that there was Joy-Con drift. The problem I have with it is mostly just that their response wasn't great. Like they didn't go the extra mile and be like, okay, let's okay, well, let's stop doing that. Let's make a different style, or let's move to Hall effect. They just didn't do it. They just were. The response has basically just been whatever, like
So the standard Nintendo response.
just non-response. So I think that's like to me that's like the biggest knock I have on the system. The online is not great, but I also feel weird about online because online will eventually, inevitably, online goes away for a video game system. It'll go away in your lifetime. It'll go away in our lifetimes. Like PS3 online is like barely hanging on. Most of it's gone. You know, you have to buy a gift card on like Amazon and then redeem it through a website on like Sony's main website to actually purchase anything on the PS3 because the PS3 store is down. So like on the online experience not being great is like that is only relevant in the years that the system is functioning. Because if I look at it as like, okay, when I get to the end of my life and I look back at my Switch library, the online functionality means nothing, more or less.
My favorite Nintendo system is the GameCube, and online didn't really matter on the GameCube at all,
Right.
except for maybe PSO was like the only thing I played online, and everything else.
And yeah, like there is the idea, yeah, like you're not going to play like the best version of almost any game on the Switch, generally speaking, but it's a portable hybrid console. Everything is just within that little, that little square you're holding. So I it's kind of like, well, yeah, of course it doesn't have as much tech as a system that came out after it, or was a giant set box top, whatever. But yeah, I think more to the general point though, is that when I think about it, okay, it definitely had some of the best. It had like the best Kirby game, it had the best Smash Brothers game, it has the best Mario Kart game. It, there's like so many of like whatever franchises, like probably their best showing, is on the Switch. Luigi's Mansion, et cetera, et cetera.
Does
The only
Mario
thing,
Kart count though? Because Mario Kart,
it's a port, but
like,
it's still the best version because it's a much more fully featured version than
yeah.
than the one on the Wii U. But yeah, it's kind of like, I wish 3D All Stars was a staple. I could sit there and be like, hey man, it's got Galaxy and
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't knock, and I wouldn't knock the Switch overall for that, but the success of Switch has definitely covered up some really strange decisions Nintendo made.
Yeah.
And one of them is after selling 10 million copies of Super Mario Brothers 3D All Stars is be like, oh, we're done. We're not going to sell it anymore. Which no game company in their right mind would do after selling 10 million copies. You keep selling it.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
They're not in the right mind.
Why
Yeah.
why would you just, I don't it's nice now, but the NSO is not as good of a substitute as the virtual console was. Because the virtual console, you were buying those games and then you downloaded those games and they just sit on your Wii until your Wii doesn't work anymore. The NSO requires an online check-in. So come the day when the NSO doesn't connect to the internet anymore on the original Switch, all of those libraries of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, Genesis, that you can't play any of those games that are downloaded. So I really, that's why the subscription model stuff is always like a double-edged sword, where it's like, hey, you didn't have to buy all these Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. You just had to pay for the subscription. But then again, when that subscription service is gone, so is the games. So that's more of a industry-wide issue, I would say, than a Nintendo issue. But I do wish there was I wish Virtual Console just existed in general. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a little sad that was one thing that was left behind on the Wii era.
Yeah, I wonder, what do you think there's anything that was left behind that's going to make it into Switch 2? Like, I don't think Virtual Console is going to come back necessarily, but are they going to learn from, any of these mistakes, any of these knocks?
Themes, folders.
They're not going to have that. No, actually, they will.
Potentially something like Street Pass might come back, maybe.
Okay. So let's get into some predictions. Let's make some wild swings too. I want to make wild swings. One, I'm going to believe the rumor mill. I'm going to say that they're right. It's coming in June. They're actually going to announce it for June, and I'm still saying it's going to be $400. Those are my two wild swings.
They're just gonna do it. They're just gonna go for it. I would love for them to do
market.
that. They can afford it.
Absolutely, they can.
They can, because okay. The real elephant in the room, with the June release with $400 is even at 400. Say they keep it down to 400, they have to the initial wave. They're getting it no matter. We're getting it no matter what.
Right.
But they have to convince a mass market audience why they need to upgrade, and that's actually going to be, I think, more difficult than people think. Like, Switch 2, everyone's just going to buy it. I'm like, the Wii U followed up the massively successful Wii. Like, there was a marketing, miscommunication in marketing for that system and everything. I think they're trying to avoid that here. So you got to like sit there and be like, okay, you have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You have a game with 50 tracks in it or something. You need to buy this new Mario Kart. Do I? Like, why?
Switch 2 is not going to do as well as Switch 1. It's going to do well, but it's not.
My prediction's always been it's going to crack 100 million, but I don't know if it'll get 150 like the Switch 1 did. That's just,
we have another pandemic, assuming we don't go into another Great Depression, and there's a lot of doomerism right now, but like,
right. Well, yeah, like some just sort of like oddly lucky thing like Animal Crossing got, which just was just such a boon for the system.
Place, right time.
Right.
Something that happened for like millennial for the Wii, right, is it became the dorm room console. Same thing happened for Gen Z, where it's like it became the pandemic console. It became the console everybody went to get when they were stuck at home. There's like a comfort that comes from Nintendo. Maybe its branding helps add it is the comfy, cozy system of the three systems, right? And of the handhelds, I don't think it's ever going to try and compete with the PC handhelds. But the sexy thing for it is that it's going to come in quite a bit cheaper than the PC handhelds.
Yeah.
And so that $400 mark, that's why I keep saying $400, because it's one, they'll still turn a profit on it. The upgrade in technology from Switch 1 to Switch 2, it's still not upgrading to the absolute top of the line, competing with the ROG Ally. Like, they're not trying to compete tech-wise with the ROG Ally. So there's
and they've proven why that works for them too. They've proven,
right.
It's like,
because people don't care about specs at the end of the day if the game's good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need it to be photorealistic. I need it to look good. I need it to be fun to play. That's what I care about in a game. And Nintendo has proven that over and over again, that like specs don't matter. What was it? The last time they cared about specs truly was GameCube. Which, okay, I guess it mattered to me, huh? But but the point is like, I don't expect Switch 2 to be an absolute over-the-top powerhouse compared to the other handheld, systems on the market today. But I also don't care about that, because the system's going to have fun games. Nintendo's built their brand purely on that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. Yeah, what do you think? What are you thinking? You think Stealth? What do you think? June?
Give me wild. Give me something wild. Be brave.
So, I mean, there were rumors a while ago. I don't know if they've been disproven or not, but Switch 2 might have 2 SKUs, one digital only. And I don't know how they would price that, but I do think Nintendo's going to want to stick to like $399. Would they do like a Mario Kart bundle right out of the gate? Maybe pack in Mario Kart? I'm not sure how that's going to work. But yeah, I mean, I think we saw Mario Kart, so everyone's thinking that's the launch game. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I agree with, I mean, if Sony hasn't been able to get back to 150 million with the PS2, I mean, it's not easy for any system to follow up the best-selling system that you ever made, and that's what Switch is like going to potentially be. But yeah, I do think that if there is a digital only system, that might be cheaper, or they might price it the same. I'm not sure.
I just can't imagine them doing that, because then that just screws out all the backwards compatibility if you had cartridges, for I the only thing I'd be more inclined to believe there's a system with like almost no internal memory that's cheap, but it can still have cartridges, versus a system with a little bit more internal memory and it comes with Mario Kart. And then they upsell that either by 50 to $100, because that's kind of like how Sony was making profit on the PS5, because they were selling the $400 digital only PS5, and they were a little underwater on that. So they sold a disc-based version of PS5 for $100 more, and they were making a profit on that. The reason they're making a profit is that, like, okay, the manufacturing cost of a digital PS5 was like $420, right?
Right.
So, like, it cost more than they were selling it, but a disc tray cost them like 10 to $15 manufacturer's cost to put it in there. Like, that's what the cost was of putting a Blu-ray disc on the thing was. It was so cheap that then we charge $100 more. We're like now making profit. We're now bumping it up, where we're making like $30 on every system sold or something like that. So yeah, whereas I could see Nintendo's like, okay, there's a $400 version that's like, we're kind of eating cost on that a little bit. We're not going to make a lot of those. They'll be very, very small allocation, but you will be more easily able to find the bundle with Mario Kart, and it's and maybe a little more internal memory, and it costs $100 more. So we're going to kind of like make up our losses there. I foresee more of a scenario on that, because I feel like you segment the market when you have like a digital only versus one that doesn't, because I mean, it's like having an Xbox One, that had, you had for some reason you had a collection of disc-based games for the Xbox One, and then you bought a Series or a Series S, which is digital only, and it's like, well, what do you do with all those discs? Nothing. Like, they're useless. But if you went for the bigger model, you could have had backwards compatibility. So had not worked out great for Microsoft. I don't know. It just feels like that rumor always struck me as odd.
I have a shit opinion that may end up being something that we get wrong and have to talk about in the future. But I'm not sure that people will pay $500 for a Nintendo console because of Nintendo's marketing. Nintendo markets as being family first / kid
first. The first 10 million they will sell no matter what. The first 10. Okay. Because the Wii U's lifetime sales is 13 million, hardware units sold, and I'm like, that is basically your
early
hardcore fan. That is your hardcore fan base. A little extra boost, and that's basically it. That is your like baseline. You will always be guaranteed to sell at least 10 million, units of a home of your next big home console, no matter what. But we've also seen how low it can go now.
Yeah.
If you have complete consumer disinterest in your product, it's like you won't even hit 15. So
yeah, I mean, I think also like Nintendo is always in pretty close communication with the Pokemon Company. So the Pokemon Company is like, I want a light version of whatever system you do that's very cheap that we can sell to kids with Pokemon, basically. I feel like that's always kind of in the background. So whenever Nintendo does, it's like, yeah, there's probably going to be a light version somewhere down the line.
Yeah, definitely, like a non-docking, because that was interesting, because that came out, way, not way after, but years after the system came out, and they're like, okay, well, here's this just portable only. You can't even buy something to play it on the TV. It just doesn't play on the TV. It doesn't have Joy-Cons. And I was a little shocked. I was like, I feel like you've taken away all the point, but it sold plenty well enough. So a lot of people were perfectly happy getting a Switch Lite.
Wasn't it only like $50 cheaper than the Switch?
100.
It was 100. It was fully $100 cheaper.
It was $100 cheaper.
Okay.
So
I can see that. Yeah, that came out like 3 years after the Switch launched, right?
Something like that, like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. It came out around when Sword and Shield came out, around there, and I think Animal Crossing too. But yeah, I mean, my preference would be just to have a normal Switch 2, and then a Switch 2 bundled with Mario Kart, if that's what you want. Because some people, we don't exactly know what the launch lineup is, but some people might not want Mario Kart.
So I don't have Mario Kart 8. I don't have 8. I don't have 8 Deluxe. I don't have either. I never bought Mario Kart 8.
Wow.
Max had Mario. Max and Kenny bought Mario Kart, and I played it a few times at theirs, and I'm like, this is great. I'm not playing this alone. Just never bought it. I just never bought Mario. Like, and is it? Do I think the game's bad? Hell no. I think the game's great. I never bought it.
I mean, it's sold 65 million, and there's there's over 100 million Switches, so you're probably not alone.
Yeah,
like
I don't own it.
The attach rate is almost like half. Almost 50% of Switch owners own Mario Kart. That's insanity.
Yeah.
The only time I played Mario Kart 8, JJ and I were waiting for Max at something at E3. He was doing a thing with Bandai Namco, and it was taking way longer than expected. And JJ pulled out this like backpack with like pro controllers, and we set up on this we were in the back area of Bandai Namco, and she set up like a tiny Switch. It was me and her and like a couple other people just started playing Mario Kart. And it was the exact selling point of the Switch for me, where I was like, yes, this is the pretty people playing things ad that I've always wanted. Yeah. It was like, that is the only time I played Mario Kart. I had a great time, but I never ended up buying it.
Yeah, strangely. It's just super weird, but
mostly because I didn't play online. I didn't want to play online with the Switch, and I wanted it to be a hand. So I didn't have anybody to play it with. So that's the only reason I didn't buy
I'm not a huge online gamer. Anyways, pandemic changed that a bit, but like I'm just not like big into online gaming, online multiplayer. It's just it's more my forte than it's ever been now, but it's also still not my forte. When a direct comes up or a state of play, I'm not sitting there going like, oh boy, what brand new multiplayer experience are they going to announce next? It's always like, oh, multiplayer. All right,
I get a little bit jazzed. I'm blanking on the name of the game right now, but there's like a Sea of Thieves. No. It's like a Sea of Thieves in space. It's like
yeah, I don't remember the name either, but
I can't remember the name, but it does seem kind of cool. It has a little bit of the problem that Concord had, where it's all like, yes, generic space shooter, but it sounds like a cool pitch. I got to look up what that game is called now. But okay, so we've got the hard predictions out. We're all on the page of like June. People are right. June is going to be the thing, and we're all half chubbed for it. And we're all sort of on the same page on cost. We think there's going to be a 400 option at least. We sort of talked about bundles, but what do you think launch game is going to be like? Well, right before we recorded, we all sort of shot down the idea that there would be a launch Zelda.
But launch Zelda, no. Like there's no way there's going
to be a launch Zelda.
I think
there was.
I think the idea is going to be there's going to be a Mario Kart at launch. There will be some weird, wacky multiplayer game, and some and maybe some small download title. I'm basing this purely off of there was Breath of the Wild, there was 1-2 Switch, there was snipper clips, right? You had your big game, you had your party game, you had your sort of little like indie darling or little indie small budget, bite-sized thing.
So 2-3 Switch will be the launch game this time.
So I think beyond Mario Kart, I think there will be some weird game that uses the Joy-Con as a mouse. That's like some weird party pass around the Joy-Con style thing. That it's probably a new IP. Probably not going to be tied to any 1-2 Switch branding. Maybe WarioWare could be, but they've done a couple WarioWares recently. So
I mean, that'd be cool. That game is Wildgate, by the way. That
Wildgate, okay.
Shooter, Sea of Thieves, Space of Thieves, Wildgate. For anybody who's interested and wants to look that up. No, I would say there's got to be some sort of party game that they're going to launch with. I think you're right on that. I don't know that it'll be like a 1-2 Switch branding, mostly because 1-2 Switch got made fun of almost in its entirety. Although I still argue that we had a great time playing it. We never played it again, but we had a great time playing it. Okay, seeing Steve gobble a submarine sandwich, a big submarine sandwich, was worth it on stream. But I definitely think there's going to be some sort of party game. It's not going to be a Mario Party because they just had a Mario Party come out.
Yeah.
But there's going to be something. I'm wondering if they're going to have a follow-up, like ARMS. Are they going to have, could there be another
Now, are we
Splatoon?
talking launch day or launch window? Because again, launch day is just going to be like the big game, the party side game, the little bite sized game,
I
and
was
then
thinking launch day.
third party. Yeah, no, I'll let you go. But I'm like, you're not getting a Dreamcast launch kind of again.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be many games, but maybe this is where I differ from you both. Obviously there's going to be Mario Kart. I actually think there's a chance there could be like a native Switch 2 version of Metroid Prime 4. A more hardcore single player experience with
Okay.
the multiplayer, kind of more party-ish experience. I think Mario Kart might be the party-ish game at launch.
That could be,
That would
yeah.
make sense, yeah. I mean, especially we've seen it in the trailer, so.
And then there could be just a random assortment of third-party ports. It's hard to it's kind of hard to predict those. Like, which is going to be the big one? Is it going to be like Final Fantasy VII Remake? Is that going to launch with it?
Or Monster Hunter Wilds?
Or Monster, yeah. So there's like really an endless number of ports that could happen. But yeah, I think it might be Metroid Prime 4 and Mario Kart. Obviously, Metroid Prime 4 will never sell as much as it will like being a launch title. Yeah. Like people, when there's no other games, people will buy it, even though it's like the fourth game in a series, which could turn some people off. The fact that they'd have to hunt down the rest to kind of get into it. But yeah, I think that's a possibility. I do think though, this might be getting ahead. The 3D Mario game will be the holiday title.
I think so, definitely.
Yeah. That's gonna be like the big tentpole. Okay, you've waited like 8 years for a new 3D Mario. Well, here's what we've been working on.
Yeah.
So I think that's due. Yeah.
100%. Their holiday game is a 3D Mario because Mario Kart being the party game, I think makes more sense than not. Which maybe Nintendo doesn't do it because it makes too much sense, but. It is the mass market multiplayer, family friendly. Everyone plays this. Everyone likes it. Everyone can jump in and enjoy Mario Kart. And especially since it looks like one of the features of this, we'll call it Mario Kart 9 or X, whatever you want to call it, or as I call it right now, Mario Kart whatever until they give it a title. Because people always get, no, it's the 10th one, no, it's the 9th one, no, it's the 10th, whatever. 24. I think it has like 24 players racing in a single race. That we gleaned from that little teaser trailer. So like having a large assortment of racers in a single race is going to be like a big new thing. So obviously they're going big on having a lot of people playing at once, obviously online. So that's the thing. It's like you don't need a 1-2 switch kind of game, a game in Wario or even in Nintendo Land, because you have Mario Kart, and Mario Kart serves that need and services that audience perfectly, and on top of it sells tens and tens and tens of millions of copies. So it's almost like a waste at this point to do a 1-2 switch thing party game for the start, because like you just have Mario Kart, everyone will be happy.
Yeah, and everyone knows what Switch is, like what Switch 2 can do. Like you don't have to sell like what its being is. And that's not to say like obviously there's going to be a WarioWare at some
eventually
point.
Oh yeah,
because that mouse functionality will lead to some mini games. But for launch, yeah, I mean when you have Mario Kart, that's your ultimate party title, I think. But yeah, and it would be Mario Kart and Metroid would be an interesting combination, because you're giving something hardcore to the single player people and you're giving something to the multiplayer people.
Metroid's such a weird duck, like a weird, like a hexagonal screw or something, because like it's still going to come out on Switch 1 apparently. So it's not going to be something that like you have to buy a Switch 2 for this. It's going to be buy the Switch 2 version because it'll be better on Switch 2.
it'll run better.
It'll run better, look better, whatever on Switch 2. So it's like it's just I have to imagine Nintendo feels so weird about this game, with the timing of its release. Like, man, what do we do with this? Because like it would definitely feel it would definitely feel wrong to say drop the Switch 1 version of Metroid Prime 4.
I don't think you can, because you promised the Switch owners that
8 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a huge population of people to buy it. Why would you cut them off?
Yeah.
And,
yes.
and that's why, and that's, I've seen conversation about potentially Mario Kart being on Switch, but I'm like, no, that one you keep exclusive. And then, I don't think it really matters so much if Metroid's on both. It did Breath of the Wild that it came to Wii.
Right. It's definitely one of those like if you really want people to never buy a Switch 2, you'd put Mario Kart on both. Because like really, then people are like, oh, new Mario Kart, great, I'll get it on my Switch. You want a new Switch 2?
Yeah.
I'm like,
I'm gonna jump more into this mouse now that we're closer. Like, how much use do we think the mouse gimmick is going? The mouse feature, I won't call it a gimmick yet, but how much use do you think the mouse feature is going to get on Switch 2?
He'll get more use from third parties than Nintendo. Nintendo will have like a couple of really cool ideas of games, and then they'll just, for some reason, never support it again.
Well, it locks you into playing at a table, right?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it's going to have to be something that you can't just. You can't do it as this will be required. It's like you can play Civilization with a controller badly,
Right.
but you can play it. So it's like when Civ.
Not even that badly, really.
When Civ 7 inevitably comes out on Switch 2 and it has mouse support, it'll be like, hey, you can play it at a tabletop, using it as a mouse, and it's really easy and fun to use like a mouse. Or you can play it on the go with dual analog. And I think you're going to see a lot of use of that. And I think Nintendo will have like, here's like a Mario Paint style, like really good use of it kind of thing. And then they'll just kind of forget about it for the rest of the system's life. That's like my weird. That's like the Labo, or like they're really really tiny dab into VR via Labo, on the Switch, like HD Rumble. Like
I should have said that for we got that wrong. Where I said they're going to get into like AR or VR, where you slot the Switch into like a goggle system you buy from them, and that's how they're going to do VR. Remember when I made that?
I thought they were gonna. I thought that this thing was gonna have cameras on it, and it was gonna use way more AR stuff.
Yeah,
they're gonna go back to AR, and they didn't, or seemingly didn't. So
yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think Nintendo's going to use it minimally, but it is a nice to have, and it's interesting to think like that could be some kid's first experience with like a PC setup, like a kind of like a PC experience. It might even be their first time using a mouse of any kind. So. I mean, I think it's an interesting gateway to certain PC games, and you know what? If it works, like another control option, like I don't think anyone's going to complain about.
Yeah, I also think the idea of having your left hand using a Joy-Con, the right is using the right Joy-Con in mouse mode, and you're basically mimicking PC control. Up, down, left, like strafing, moving forward and back with your left hand, and then moving your mouse with the right. And you're going to have people who are going to somehow get really good at first-person shooters. People be like, "Where are all these pros coming from? They're on the Switch. How's that possible?" They're on Switch.
It's a very like, the movement of your wrists and everything. I don't know. It's weird.
It kind of makes sense because there are people who actually have done that where they have like one-handed controllers, and they use a mouse, and they're like I've seen it in action. It's actually pretty cool.
The guys who use trackballs for first-person shooters.
Oh my god! Like
that's a sort of like talent or insanity that I can't. But our friend Justin has used trackball mice for first-person shooters at one point. So
super weird. That's probably the more unknown but exciting aspect of the Switch 2 at this point would be the mouse use, because we basically they all but confirmed it with that teaser trailer, because they all that's how teaser trailers work. Like they didn't just do that for no reason with a little guard on its side. It's obviously a mouse configuration or a mouse mode, and what that could entail, especially with first party Nintendo, who are willing to be weird and creative in ways the rest of the industry is not anymore.
They're going to launch with something that uses it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're going to.
And honestly, I think it's Prime 4. I think Prime 4 is going to have a mouse mode. Again, moving with the left analog stick and then using the right Joy-Con for like mouse aiming. I honestly think that's going to be a feature in Prime 4 for the Switch 2. But let me break this down here. Let me break it down by first party studio just to like sort of like make it simple. Now, within Nintendo Kyoto, there's roughly 10/11 departments, if you will. Not all of them are developers, but we can break it down because EPD 1, 2, and 6 they are liaison studios. They work with other people. They're like, okay, like EPD 1 is the people who worked with Way Forward to get Advance Wars, remake going. They'll do Brain Age stuff like that with other people. EPD 2 is one who worked with like Ubisoft in particular, or with what was it? Not Acquire. Who made Brothership? Whatever that studio was.
What's Acquire?
It was Acquire? Okay, yeah. Like EPD 2 works with like Acquire and Ubisoft and stuff like that. In EPD 6, they're basically liaisons a lot with NST. So
yeah,
we're not going to talk about them. Nintendo Software Technology, what would they be doing on Switch 2? I have no idea, but they recently came out with multiple games, Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake, and F-Zero 99. I have no idea what they're going to do because they were silent for many years, and then 2 games suddenly just dropped out of the blue. No idea what they're going to do for Switch 2. I have nothing to really even guess on there. If anything, they could be again. I think they'll exist squarely in the Nintendo Switch Online space. More experiences like F-Zero 99, maybe more bite-sized things like the Mario versus DK series. Something along those lines. I don't think you're ever going to see like a massive game project. Project Hammer will never come back. Anyone who's old enough to remember that. But I played it.
Not even sure that I'm old enough. I know you've made that joke before.
Project Hammer. It was a game on the Wii, and it never came out.
It got canceled. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I played it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't phenomenal, but it wasn't bad. But anyways,
I do remember this. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I could see them making a new Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Yeah. I think something like that will probably happen. It'll probably be like a download only kind of game, maybe. Like I don't know. It just who knows? Nintendo still will do physical for even the small stuff. So I think Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake still sold a bunch, especially for what it is. So, but yeah, moving into game studios you care about. EPD 3 is the Zelda team.
Yeah,
you're not seeing Zelda for a while. You're not seeing it at launch. I don't even think you see a tease. This is probably going to be my biggest prediction / heartbreak here. I don't even think there's a teaser for the next Zelda game here. I think we got it because for one, there's so many other things they have to focus on with just the launch, the price, Mario Kart, a 3D Mario. I don't think it's Zelda's time. I know a lot of people like it's a new system. You should show a new Zelda. I'm like, yes, but it's going to be so far away.
Yeah, I mean, you aren't seeing anything from Fujibayashi's team. He's the one making the new AAA Zelda, but you might see, and I know like this has also been going around. It's not an actual rumor or a leak. It's kind of like, oh, I wish this was true. An Ocarina of Time remake, a full remake. I don't know if Nintendo would make that, but something along those lines where it's either a spin-off or a remake, something like that is possible. But yeah, you aren't even get like a picture of Link in Fujibayashi's next game. Like literally, like they went right from ending Tears of the Kingdom to this new game. Might they have concept art already? Maybe, but you're not going to. And I don't want to see that. Like I don't want to see a Zelda game that I'm not going to be playing for 3 years.
Right.
Right, because I think they announced Tears in 2021, and it didn't come out till 24 or 23 something, or it was.
No, I think they announced Tears at E3 2019.
19, sorry, yeah, it was even earlier. It was 2019. It came out like 23 or 24. So it was just like it was a very long time.
Sneak in an Ocarina of Time full remake though. If they somehow pulled that off as like a launch window game. Could you imagine?
Honestly, I don't even think it would even be that tough. You take what Grezzo did on the 3DS, and just hypercharge, the presentation. I'm not even saying voice acting. I'm just like just make it look really pretty because it's funny to think about in today's world. Ocarina of Time is kind of a small game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Comparatively speaking to what experiences you get now from like the big expensive games, it's like, yeah, that's actually kind of a tiny game. like like the total number of areas and spaces you go is actually like almost small now in today's, like hyper bloated, so just take what exists and just make it look real good. And you don't even have to make it bigger. You don't have to reimagine anything. Just literally take the exact same dimensions of every every square inch of that area and just make it look really pretty. That's it.
That's what people want. Like they don't want like a whole new side story in the game. They just want it to look damn good.
Yeah, like just make them I mean, if they were doing that, like, hey, Ocarina of Time HD, like it just looks really pretty. Oh, okay. Like awesome. Buying that for sure. Yeah. So I think you're right. There is absolutely a possibility where a Zelda project is maybe shown potentially, but that major mainline Fujibashi directed, open world Zelda, like that's not happening. It's not happening this year. It's not happening this year at all, I don't think.
I mean, we all know it's happening, and that's good enough. Like like you don't have to wonder like, oh, what's Fujibayashi doing? He's making the next Zelda, and that's it's known without anyone saying anything, and that'll hold people over.
Until he dies. Until he dies, he's going to be doing
90.
He's going to be doing that until long into his afterlife.
Yeah, he wanted it. He didn't have to leave Capcom and live the Zelda life.
Yeah.
EPD4, interesting. They're a workhorse developer. They did Ring Fit Adventure, 1-2 Switch, Game Builder Garage, Labo, Switch Sports. This is where your party game, if there is a party game, it's coming from these guys.
Yeah.
Ring Fit, huge success for them. Switch Sports, big success for them too. They do a lot of the smaller, but not a $20 indie, or not even indie. That's almost unfair. Not like a $20 bite-sized game. They do full games like Ring Fit and what have you. They're just not huge, massive productions. Like a Zelda or a 3D Mario, but they're pretty efficient. They got a lot of stuff done over the course of the Switch, and I think if you're from them, I'm saying you're going to see a Mario Paint itself, whether it's called Mario Paint or something. I think EPD4. Now, will it be launch window? No, I don't know. Maybe. I just think if there's ever going to be a sort of non-IP tied, because they make the non-IP tied games. Ring Fit is its own IP. Switch Sports is kind of in its own weird IP land of its own, right? And Labo and what have you. They're not tied to any specific Nintendo IP. They're just kind of their own thing.
How big is the launch window? First quarter?
A summer. Like
summer.
Say if it launches in June, launch window is until like September to me. Like at least June, July, August. Like that's launch window for me.
So there's potentially a lot of stuff that could be in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ring Fit Adventure was so successful. Like for a long time, it was like it cracked like the top 10 best-selling Switch games. I think there will be a sequel to that eventually. But yeah, I do think like if any team was to make a Mario Paint, something kind of more offbeat, it would be that team. But yeah, I think Ring Fit 2 is just you kind of have to do it. It sold like over 10 million copies, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it was up to 12 or something. It's nuts how much Ring Fit sold. EPD 5 is Splatoon and Animal Crossing. They're obviously making Splatoon and Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
but I don't think you see either next week.
I disagree. I think you get a little. I think you get. So this is the thing. I think there might be like a Splatoon 3 Deluxe at the start, and Splatoon 4 comes a bit later. I think I don't know. I think they have something for the new Animal Crossing because it's been a long time. It's been 5 years since New Horizons came out.
Yeah, it did so well.
Yeah. I think that could get teased.
Yeah, I'll stick to saying like I don't think it will, but I think you both are right in the sense that like Animal Crossing sold too well to sort of just not tease and just like we are going to do a new Animal Crossing. It will be the tiniest of teasers. Like I can see that. And Splatoon is still such a big thing in Japan that like you have to imagine that and so interesting you're saying they might do a Splatoon 3 Deluxe.
Yeah, I'd like to see a deluxe with all the downloadable content on one cart, maybe a little bit extra.
Okay.
Like a holdover until the next.
Yeah, because I do think not every game is going to be like a brand new game right away. I do think like the deluxe versions on Switch were so successful for Nintendo. There's got to be like a few deluxes before you get a main game, kind of thing. And I think
Splatoon would benefit from a mouse mode as well.
Yeah,
just saying.
Would it benefit, or is it playable in a mouse mode? I always get this when people are like, "Oh, keyboard mouse would just absolutely dominate." Like, I'm not sure that it would.
Well, people use the gyro controls for Splatoon 1 right now, or they just, they use the tilting the Pro controller or the Joy-Cons, and they use that more than they use analog sticks.
Would that translate to mouse mode though? Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's what I'm looking forward to seeing how that gets used, if at all. I'm so interested in how much mouse we're actually going to see.
Yeah, but with that team, there's no surprise on what they're working on.
Yeah.
No.
EPD 7 is kind of the wild card because they basically did internally themselves nothing on the Switch until Emio the Smiling Man, and even that was technically like in collab with the other studio that did the other Famicom Detective Club.
Mages.
Yeah, it's Sakamoto's branch. They were the original 2D Metroid guys, and they don't even do 2D Metroid anymore. They're a weird studio to me. I don't know what they do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Sakamoto said like I don't think Amiya sold that well. I don't think it broke 1 million copies. I'm pretty sure it didn't.
No.
But he said he wants to make a new one. Could he? Sure. But yeah, that's more of a wild card. I don't know what they would work on.
You know what? Nintendo having an M-rated visual novel series is not a bad thing. I think just having that in their back pocket is nice, honestly. If anything, I didn't play Emio. I heard it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
If anything, if you could do something like 13 Sentinels, just have that on your system, have it there. And then the big one, EPD 8, which is Nintendo Tokyo, as it used to be. We all know a 3D Mario's coming. There is the rumor that they were maybe doing a Donkey Kong, like a 3D Donkey Kong, or maybe they were going to take their own crack at Donkey Kong Country. I don't know if that's true or not. They did do Jungle Beat, so it's not like EPD8's never touched Donkey Kong before. But I don't know. I think that's the only real. This could maybe be a surprise where it's like we don't have a 3D Mario coming out this year. We have a 3D Donkey Kong.
Just for you. And I would love another Jungle Beat.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have liked the idea that perhaps people got their lines crossed and kind of like we have like not even half the information, but maybe Donkey Kong is into 3D Mario. And, he plays a more important role with Pauline potentially. It's interesting. Maybe Donkey Kong's playable. And you have Mario and Donkey Kong on an adventure. Something like that.
The name Mario vs. Donkey Kong is already taken, but what if it was just called like Super Mario Brothers X Donkey Kong, Cross Donkey Kong Country, where it's like it is like Mario and Donkey Kong. They take sort of the cue from the movie, and they're like they team up, and you choose between Mario Brothers or Donkey and Diddy, and they're sort of like interchangeable, or they have intersecting campaigns or something like that, or maybe there's like a major focus on co-op, or one's Mario, one's Donkey Kong, one's a little bit more agile and one's a bit more grounded in, pounding and, just rolling, or like, just so like maybe that's it. Cause like, Cappy's, great. Cappy's fun or whatever, but it kind of feels like EPD8's always wanted to have like a co-op experience in their games, but it's always been here, give your little sibling the other controller. They can pretend they're playing the game.
Yeah, they can't actually do anything, but they can click buttons.
They click buttons. So maybe they go like full in, with like hey, I just finished Split Fiction, fantastic game. Not that I want them to go full split screen like that or anything, but imagining a game of the quality of It Takes Two Split Fiction with Mario and Donkey Kong in Mario and Donkey Kong worlds is like, ooh, that's really exciting. Maybe EPD8 doesn't do it. Maybe they hire Hazelight. Maybe they reach out to Hazelight and be like, hey, you guys want to make a Mario Donkey Kong co-op game? Like, sure. Like, I don't know. That's just dream though. But yeah, maybe, that's an interesting thing. Like, maybe people are getting their wires crossed. Maybe it's the next 3D Mario has Donkey Kong in it rather than they're making their own version of Donkey Kong Country. That would actually be really exciting. It would actually be, I don't think it would be expected. I don't think it would be something that people, would initially like predict to happen, but it would be a most welcome surprise for sure.
My final prediction will be that it's my maximalist. Let's go maximalist for the end here, since we're at the end of the episode. But we're gonna get both. we're gonna get a Donkey Kong game and a Mario game. That's
separately.
Yeah.
My bold prediction, because I have to make it, is, and I told people this, I'm like 60 to 70% sure of this. I truthfully do think we're going to see a tease for Monolith Soft's next game. It won't be launch window. It won't be launch day. It'll be maybe 12 months from release. It'll be probably at the end of next spring, like about a year from now when it comes out. But the reason I say that is they have their Sony Santa Monica, their Naughty Dog, their Guerrilla Games. They have their studio that makes the big pretty game that they can really showpiece and you're like, here's what it's capable of. And I think that's why they tease a game from Monolith Soft. I honestly do think. I know X Definitive just came out, but I think X Definitive's been done. I think it's actually just been sitting, waiting in the wings for a release date. I think that was one of the rainy day. We're holding on to it a bit. Just from like how early people got full review codes and, kind of just the general feel and vibe I get from that. So I'm just like, I think they're going to have their big, okay, well, we're making Mario, we're making, Mario Kart, and we're going to have all this other stuff. But okay, so if you want to know, like, okay, so yes, that we're going to have these things. And obviously we've seen like, they're not really pushing graphics in Mario Kart because they don't need to. And I don't even know where you even go graphically after 8. Like, so it's like, but what do we do? Here's this thing, whatever it is, new IP. I predict new IP from Monolith Soft. Here's this big, flashy, giant, open zone game that has really good graphics. This is what the system is capable of. Before anyone just wants to naysay or thinks we're down, we're downplaying the hardware of the system. So I do think that happens. I'm honestly expecting it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a few last predictions. I'm surprised we didn't talk about him already. Mr. Sakurai has been working on a game for over 2 years now.
I don't think they show Smash. Max is full tilting, like he's there. It's happening. It's totally gonna happen. I'm like, I don't think it is.
I don't think that game, the one he teased that he's been working on for 2 years, is Smash. But I do think that there's going to be some mention of Smash Brothers somewhere. And then Fire Emblem. There's been rumors of a Genealogy remake. Some people think it's coming to Switch. We'll see. I think it could come on both. And then Kirby. I think Kirby and the Forgotten Land 2.
Oh man, I want a Forgotten Land sequel so
bad. I don't think it's going to come the same. I don't think it's going to come in 2025 because you already got 3D Mario. But 2026, sure.
Okay.
I think it's definitely going to happen.
Because that would be what, like 5 years after Forgotten Land, if it say it comes out next March or whatever, March or a year from now. That's a
years.
Yeah, that's a good amount of time between titles for them to have like a nice, follow up to Forgotten. God, I want like that's more what I want. That's not a prediction. Like I don't know, but I want that.
Yeah.
I want a Forgotten Land too, really bad.
We know people are stoked for a Fire Emblem though. We know that's going to be one.
I think that one's a Metroid Prime 4 situation for me, where I'm like, because the rumors have been so consistent that this is a Switch game, this is a Switch game, this is a Switch game, Switch 1, and I'm like, okay, so I just kind of like forgot about it, but like because it never got announced, it was never an official product. What if it did get moved to Switch 2? What if it is just all right, well, we'll just make it look really pretty and just put it on Switch 2 instead? I could see that happening. Maybe it's dual, maybe it's cross-gen. That's the other thing. How many of these games will be cross-gen? Because even the president has basically said, like, we're still going to make games for Switch 1 where it makes sense.
I think you're going to see cross-gen at least for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
I would say that's pretty safe.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, then you're not convincing people to move on to the new system if too much is cross-gen.
I think they're too conservative. Well, okay, Nintendo is the most likely to rip the Band-Aid off of everyone. But I think they've seen what's happened with Sony, where like they can't get people to move over, so they've dragged on doing cross-gen to get the game sales.
Yeah, the mistake it's not. I don't know if it was a mistake, but Sony put their biggest games on both.
Right.
I don't think Nintendo will. I think they'll, if there's like deluxe games, if there's more ports. Like I know there's been a rumor of Kirby Planet Robobot HD. Like that might just stay on Switch or be on both. Like if there's HD remasters, sure.
Yeah, I think if it's a 3DS game or whatever that gets put on Switch 1, it is on Switch 2. We don't have to have a Switch 2 version. We'll just have it on Switch 1. Switch 2 people can download and play it just as easy. So we don't really need to. It's a Switch 1 game that, of course, it works on the new system.
Yeah. Like, is the 3D Mario going to be on both? Like God of War was on both? No.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that's happening at all. Because here's the thing. As big as the new 3D Mario will be, in no universe is Nintendo spending as much money on that next 3D Mario as Sony spent on making God of War Ragnarok. Yeah. So they don't have to make up, they're not like, if we don't sell 10 million copies in 2 months, we are doomed or we are underwater. Yeah. No, Nintendo will be like, we need to sell about 2 million and it'll break even. And then like, oh, it sold 10, it sold 20. Excellent.
This last generation proved that Nintendo is, at the very least, they have their finger on the pulse of the industry better than anyone in the industry, but they might just be smarter than Sony and Xbox.
Yeah, like I think a lot of the third-party ports are going to be exclusive to Switch 2, just because they couldn't physically make them work, or they didn't want to make them work on Switch.
Yeah, I think, and here's the thing, I think that's a mistake. I think it's going to be a mistake for a lot of third parties that they make, where they're just like, we could put this on Switch 2 now. Like it was way too much work to get it on Switch. We'll just put this on Switch 2, put that on Switch 2. I'm like, I don't know, because like even like say like the big one, like say Elden Ring, right? Oh, there'll be Elden Ring will come on Switch 2. Probably will come out on Switch 2, but From Software can't get any of their games to run well, even to this day.
On anything.
Yeah. So Switch 2, unless some other company is doing it, like I don't know. Like but here's the other thing too, is like 25 million people bought Elden Ring. How many of them are going to double dip for a Switch 2 version? And that might be one of the more easier successes, but it's like, okay, well, let's put Dragon Ball Sparking Neo on Switch 2 because it sold well, like, last year on the PS4 and PS5. And I'm like, everyone who wanted that game has bought it. Yeah, they bought it. Like the novelty of it being on the go is, I'm just saying, I wish third parties would be a little bit more creative with their Switch games, if they port it to Switch or rather just, I'd rather they be thinking more of what can the system do for a game rather than, oh, hey, yeah, this game we had and made, we can now put it on this system easier. Let's just do that.
What would make it compelling for me, and they did do this a lot on Switch, is they bundled it with all the DLC. Like that would make it a compelling version if it's all on cart. Like Elden Ring. Like, did you get the expansion too?
Yeah. If you get Erdtree and maybe even Night Rain, which they wouldn't do that, but yeah, like that would be a good. I think games that could offer mouse support on Switch 2 would be an enticing way to sort of like, hey, well, we had this game and it's on console, but hey, if you buy the Switch 2 version, you can use mouse controls like naturally just have this sort of Joy-Con mouse mode on it. Oh, that's pretty good. But again, like we live in an era, and Phil Spencer was right about this. Like people built their digital libraries hard during the PS4 generation, and even more so into this generation. If you bought a game in the last 12 years digitally, you have no reason to really buy it again on another system, because
Right.
if you bought a vanilla PS4 and you're on a PS5 Pro right now, that game you bought digitally on the PS4 vanilla still runs well on your PS5 Pro right now. You don't even have to do anything to just boot it up and play. Just download it, So to sit there and be like, okay, well, just in a wild scenario, let's say like Sony was, going super third party, like the way Microsoft was, and was like, well, let's put Bloodborne on Switch too. And it's like, or, people who have a PS5 Pro could just play Bloodborne right now. It's going to be hard to entice someone, I think, to be like, oh, but it's portable. I'm like, yeah, but that's
wants
not
to play it portable. Yeah.
Well, the portable novelty was amazing in 2017, but that gimmick has been around for 8 years now. And again, like you said, there's a ton of pocket PCs, on the market now. And like if you're really enthusiastic about playing like a portable version of a high-end PC game, you have a ROG Ally X for that. So or something like that, where people are all like enthusiast tech who are like, oh, I'm okay spending $1,000 for a portable PC. Like they're already there. So I want third parties to be a little bit more creative, I guess, in a way where it's like it was like, or just be cheap about it. Like when they ported Kiwami 1 over to Switch, I was like, why? And they're like, oh, it's $20. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, that makes more sense, to come like, wow, it's so late in the life. Who hasn't played Yakuza Kiwami at this point who's wanted to? And then it's like, well, it's a $20 version. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Just like maybe that's a good way to sort of like entice people in with a port is maybe drop the price a little bit,
Yeah, Nintendo's not great about dropping price, but
not them obviously, but like third party in general. It's just, I don't know. For me, it's hard to be excited about an old game getting a Switch 2 port at this point. I'm just like, I have all the consoles, so I have access to most of these games,
but the average player does not.
True.
That's sometimes, especially as like streamers, it's hard to like the average person out there chooses which one they have. They have a Nintendo, or they have most people I would say probably have two now, but like there's a lot of people that only have the Switch. So it coming out on Switch, even if it is a 10-year-old game, if it's never been if it's never been on a Nintendo system.
And honestly, we saw that a lot on Switch, where Switch got very late ports, and it's like, who is going to buy this? And they sold better. They sometimes they sold even better, or they sold just as much. Like I remember, like Okami HD. Okami is on every damn system that there is, but it sold crazy good on Switch.
Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 came to Switch. How old was it by then?
Games too. Like.
That is very true. That Nier Automata came out so late on Switch, and like I bought it because I'm buying Nier Automata again, or whatever. And then they're like, we sold like 1 million or 1.5 million copies on Switch. So I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah, I mean, being on Switch is enough for some people who are in that ecosystem, just like they're in Sony's ecosystem. But
yeah, I will say, go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree. Like, there's been rumors of like a bundle of the Mario plus Rabbids games. Like that interests me, where if you bundle games together on cart, put all the DLC on cart, like that stuff interests me. But I do think there'll be a good number of exclusives too, or at least first, on Switch. Like I think Dragon Quest 12, very very good chance Nintendo's gonna lock down the marketing for that. So I think it's not. I don't think it's all going to be ports. I think there's going to be some exclusives, or at least some launch exclusives from the Japanese side of things.
Yeah, and with the new hardware, at least we'll be a little bit more back in the area now, where I'm like, if this isn't a graphically intensive title, I will now consider the Switch 2 more than the other ones for that portability.
I mean, if it's on Steam Deck, it should technically run on Switch too.
Right. You know,
Right.
the Falcom games in particular, when they release a new Falcom title, it'll be like, oh, well, what do you want to get this on? I will actually consider Switch 2 for a Falcom title. Just because I'm like, this is not a graphical powerhouse. There's no reason this game can't run well on the Switch 2. So, you know, having it on the go is pretty great. So, you know, maybe I'm excited to actually get back into the groove of like, I will now actually consider, because we got to a certain point, you know, as the years dragged on for the Switch 1, where it was like, this is coming to all these systems and Switch. I'm like, I'm not going to even think about it, because this thing, and then it comes out on like a PS4 or PS5, and it barely runs on a PS4 or PS5. And I'm like, oh, this thing don't run well anywhere. So,
We've made some pretty solid predictions. We've also, I hope each one of us has had a swing for the fences, I hope, here. But I want to give last chance, Stealth40K, if you have anything that you really wanted to talk about before I thank patrons and we get out of here, and I let you escape off into the night.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered everything for Switch 2. I know, like, we're all very, very excited about next week. You know, it's not every day you get a direct where literally almost everything could be announced. Like, you know, everything is open in Nintendo. They haven't released anything yet. So, you know, it's not like, oh, Smash is out, so they're not going to announce Smash. Like, everything is open. So it's a very exciting time. You know, I still
they've been
think very
quiet for a while.
Yeah, I mean, their last major direct where they announced one first party game was June 2024. That's the last time they announced a first party game in a direct. Obviously, Xenoblade was its own thing, randomly shadow dropped.
On Twitter, but it's like it's a Wii U remaster, so
Yeah.
wasn't even technically a new game.
So there's a lot in the wings.
Yeah, and they had a partner showcase, but like this is like you know the Switch showcase in January 2017 where they announced Xenoblade 2, and you know they gave a release date for Zelda, and you know they showed off 3D Mario. So really, like whatever they have, like they've been preparing for this for a long time. So I'm very excited.
Like, granted, Nintendo was sort of in desperation mode in January 2017 because you know the Wii U had been gone. It was pretty much was toast for a while, and like they really needed to convince everyone like why you need to be interested in our new system. They're not in that sort of like desperate. Now people know the Switch, people like the Switch, so now it's more like why you need to upgrade. But again, like you said, they've been so quiet. And as I pointed out, and you've pointed it out too, every major title Nintendo published last year was done by an external partner. All of them were either entirely or at least halfway external partner made. None of them were internal developed.
Yeah, I think they made one thing, and that was the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake.
True, yeah, that was NST.
Yeah,
and then technically they own. It's called N-Cube now. It's not even ND Cube anymore. They actually fully bought out ND Cube. So N-Cube, who did Super Mario Party Super Mario Party Jamboree, is like they're only technically internal with Mario vs. Donkey Kong. And every single other game, and there was like 12 or whatever, because they released like basically one a month, was an external partner. You know, whether it was Goodfield, Arc System Works, who did, you know, Another Code, like you know, Acquire with Mario Luigi, you know, just
Mages with Emil.
Yeah,
serious chance that Nintendo whips its whole dick out. Just really like lets it fly on this one.
I mean, the year before they did release quite a lot: Zelda, Pikmin, Mario Wonder. They did have quite a lot internal, but yeah, like they've been.
Although Pikmin, I think aiding helped on 4. Yeah, that's some help, but it was still an internal game.
Yeah, but yeah, they've been very, very quiet. They've been working on Switch 2 for quite a long time. You know,
and everything I know behind the scenes, it's longer than people might think that they've actually been tinkering with you know with the new hardware. So you know, I do think next week's obviously going to be, you know, someone upstairs hates me for doing it 6 a.m. I think it's 9 a.m. for you guys, but I'm like 6 a.m. I'm like, oh, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a fan of Nintendo's like later in the day directs, but they do it for Japan.
Yeah, I love early morning.
Because if you look at it, you look at the worldwide, distribution of when this stuff is being announced. I'm like, oh, so they're trying to do like what makes the most sense for a global thing. Like this is sadly, this is the best way to get the most eyes on something around the entire world at once. Which just happens to be, well, if you live on the West Coast of America, hope you like it getting up early.
You're still waking up early, but it's not as bad as it could be for other regions.
Yeah, Europe's like, forget you. We have to wake up at like 3 a.m. for some of our stuff. Yeah. So
on that note, we've got some patrons to thank, but thank you so much for being a guest today. Talking predictions, talking favorite collectibles. Hilarious that you're the second person I've ever met that collects Nintendo Powers, the other being my brother. Your collection probably better than his. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that. I don't know how far along he is now. I know he has probably like 8 years worth, I think. So I don't know where you're at, but I'll have to ask him to follow up with him. But again, thank you so much, Stealth40K, for being on. We always appreciate you. And our patrons for this episode, our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Zybernite, Skernami, Croy35, HyperViper89, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.
Bye.